Hey, welcome back to Evil's Comics. I'm Evil Mike, and this is going to be kind of like a review slash overview of the event called Night Terrors from DC Comics that we got going on right now. This is going to be an overview of just the first week, and the thumbnail is just going to be titled Night Terrors, first week. But before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe on this guy's channel. It does help. Hit the bell if you're so inclined, if you want to stay, see when I'm dropping videos, that kind of stuff. Everything's free, doesn't cost you anything. So let's get into it. So the main first issue is Night Terrors First Blood. This is like some kind of neon variant or whatever. So we got writers Joshua Williamson, art by Howard Porter, colors by Brad Anderson, and letters by Troy Peteri. Joshua Williamson does some of the other titles, but a lot of the other titles are written and art done by different artists and writers. So let's get into it. If you read any of the DC Comics, you got a little preview of Night Terrors, and that's kind of what the first couple pages are. We are caught up with Dr. Destiny, and basically, I'm going to sum this up. He's kind of in a dream at first, and then it starts changing into a nightmare. I'll kind of hold it there for a second. He realizes that someone's trying to mess with him. He even kind of, tells him, you can't really mess with me. This is my world, kind of thing. He's transported to the Hall of Justice, and as soon as he gets here, we kind of find out why, he's been taken here, and it's because this entity or person or whoever it is looking for the Nightmare Stone. But these nightmare-looking things are able to affect Dr. Destiny, and that's kind of what starts weirding him out. He's never kind of experienced that kind of thing. That's where the book cuts off. We catch up with one of our main characters, Deadman, who's going to be one of the main characters, but it kind of catches you up with him. We kind of catch up with a lot of the other characters as Deadman's flying around. Many of the main Justice League. We got Superman, Wonder Woman, eventually Batman, but they're all brought back to the Hall of Justice and getting some call. Eventually they find Dr. Destiny's body there, desecrated at the Hall of Justice. They start to perform an investigation trying to figure out how this is possible. They go into another room and they find another version of Dr. Destiny that's kind of still alive and muttering stuff, and that's kind of where we get a little more of the main story. At this point, Deadman tries hopping in Batman. It's kind of one of the cooler points. You can see him doing it right here. And Batman is just a badass, and he's had this thing happen with Deadman before, and he instantly kicks Deadman out and tells him not to do that again. While this is going on, we kind of found out a little more that the world's about to fall asleep, that this new bad guy, and his name is Insomniac. But he starts talking to everybody, kind of, explaining, and again, this is a summarized version of this, a sped up. But basically the Justice League start, telling everybody not to fall asleep. We get some background moments with Amanda Waller as she's kind of watching all this go down. She does mention that, and I'll kind of highlight this a little bit. She mentions something wicked, wicked this way is going to come, and she shows this big guy in the background. I'm not familiar who it is at the moment. It looks like a couple different people, but I don't know. So eventually back to Dr. Destiny and his body. He just mentions that they need to find this other stone that's related to the Dream Stone. And that's going to be the main plot of the story. Eventually, once this thing gets going, everybody starts falling asleep, and there's no and we do get to see some versions of Insomniac, but it's not really him yet. During the nightmare, the Night Terrors single issues, we get to see him a little better. But basically they all start falling asleep, and everybody that basically isn't a robot or whatever, or that's kind of human, alien, or has the ability to fall asleep, they all start falling asleep. So we start seeing some scary stuff, because Superman was mid-flight and he kind of tanks down like a missile. But they just kind of briefly touch up on all the other, some major DC players kind of thing. But they kind of, one of my favorites is the Joker, and he's like, what the hell? But at this point, the whole majority of the DC universe, not everybody, but they fall asleep, and that's where we get the whole Night Terrors thing. It kind of starts out with Bruce, and he's back in Crime Alley. Um, but for the majority, that's kind of where they leave us off. I want to say that, they show a little bit of Insomniac, but I mean, for the most part, you're gonna see a trend. It's kind of like this face. They don't really show this a whole lot, but that is where the kind of the first issue leaves off. On Night Terror's First Blood is what the first issue goes off. Now, I don't think there's any reading order to the other ones, but the first week we had Joker, we had Batman, we had Black Adam, and then there was two I missed deliberately, but Ravager and Poison Ivy. It was just due to money restraints, but I'm going to touch base the most with the one I like the most, but that was Joker. I thought this one, I know a lot of people thought this one was going to be boring, or, because it's the Joker. What is this, and they kind of showed us some pictures before, and it's kind of what you would think. His nightmare would be living a boring life, or would it, kind of thing. So we get this issue, and this one is written by Matthew Rosenberger, and I probably said that wrong, and art by Stefano Raffaella. Sorry if I mispronounced those names, but basically it starts off on a rooftop fight with Joker, and Batman goes to lunge at Joker, and as he does, he kind of trips and falls and literally slides to his death. The Joker kind of starts blaming his goons. Did y'all make that slick on purpose? He wasn't supposed to die, kind of thing. And they kind of show you at this point that Batman is dead, that he accidentally slipped off this rainy rooftop, and he fell to his death. And at this point, Joker's like, well, what do I do, They go forward, and they kind of mention that he's taken over the city at this point. There's no Batman, nobody to stop him, and he's getting to the point where he's like, I've done that, did that, what comes next, and they kind of show you some of his, his encounterings, but eventually it just gets to a state where it's and they show you, and he's bored because there's nothing to stop him. He's done everything, bat-wise. But it gets to a point where he's like, well, what can I do? And he's like, well, he ends up getting a regular job. We do see Insomniac. He pops up, like I mentioned, pay attention to the face kind of thing. But basically at this point, Joker goes to get this 9 to 5. And he goes in there, and it's not like you would think. It's not like he's literally trying to do a good job. Nope, he goes in there and he's like, I want to find these secrets. He's like, that's why I took this job. I think he's at Wayne Enterprises. But, and he's basically trying to be his bad self at the job, and it's just not working. Everything he does, it ends up getting him promoted. He ends up making friends, and you'll see weird stuff as far as the office, and the only ever time it's kind of called out that he's doing something bad or something like that is when he's starting to think he's doing something bad, kind of thing. Because at one point he does kill one of the other workers, because he felt like the guy was a douchebag, blah blah blah, but he does end up microwaving his head and stuff like that. But eventually even that occasion is capitalized in a good way. As the story goes, there is this kind of one thing that starts happening, and they start mentioning that Batman's still around in the background, and you start realizing that's more of his nightmare kind of thing. Maybe the Batman that he ran into wasn't the Batman that was that he thought, and Batman's still out there, so he's been doing this for nothing kind of thing. But it is mentioned a couple different times that Batman's still alive and stuff, to the point where regular people in his daily life start bringing it up, moments on TV, or occasions that they might have seen somebody jump off a rooftop or something like that. Eventually he starts getting followed and chased by some goons that know he's the Joker or whatever, and they don't realize he's living this regular life. It ends up being a bunch of his own goons or whatever that end up doing it, and they're just looking for work or whatever. So basically at this point they're just robbing people. But it's during this occasion when it's like definitely confirmed that Batman is still like running around, and either like it's somebody new, or it's the same Batman and the other one was like an imposter. It gets to the point where Joker's like, he can't be another Batman because this guy's dead in my closet, kind of thing. But like I said, it's just one of those things where it's like the Joker can do no wrong at this job. Everything that he keeps doing gets him promoted, kind of thing. But they do even show us moments where he goes home and he's like kind of living a life. But they do go back to that, and this is where this issue leaves off, and it's where Batman really is dead in his closet. So what the heck's going on, kind of thing. And it's it's kind of painting that picture that maybe Joker's insane. I don't know. Again, these are first issues. These last two, I'm going to breeze through them because this one was basically like all about, and we're going to be talking about Black Adam. And basically Black Adam was all about his ego. He goes to sleep, he wakes up, and it's this constant battle with this nightmare. And I don't remember if he realizes he's in this nightmare, because some of them do realize they're in the nightmare. Like the Joker, he did not. And this one, it's just a majority of like these like different things that are coming after him. I want to say like Furies or something like that, but of course that's from Greek mythology and he's Egyptian, so I don't know what they would be called. Basically it's these like entities that keep coming after him, and during the book it's like he just keeps losing his powers. They do come back, but it's like as we progress, this strong, mighty, super badass entity known as Black Adam, and they still do show you that he is immensely badass, but as the story progresses, he loses more and more and more, kind of thing, to the point where like at first it was like his powers kind of faded out, then he gets taken all the way back to I think it's Seth, his mortal form or whatever, and then eventually he runs into this cat. This cat starts trying to like explain a little bit of what's going on, but at this point they're not really like kind of giving us a whole lot. We do get another point where he does get his powers back, and he kind of progresses a little further on in his mission, but at the end of this he ends up running, the cat like leads him to this place where he ends up running to a god, Isis, and it kind of goes down exactly like you think. Like, Black Adam just gets his ass beat by this god, gets blasted out. It almost looks like he was going to repeat that thing where his origin story where he got blasted out into space, but that's not exactly what happens. He ends up back at the alley where he met that cat. And at the very end of it, he's basically trying to figure out what's going on with not really a lot of help. And eventually someone who might be able to shed some light on it shows up, and he just says that we need to talk, kind of thing. And that's where this one leads off. But I want to say the majority of his nightmare was like the ego thing, like him having all the powers and stuff like that. Okay, so last but not least, Batman, and this one is written by Joshua Williamson. This one's, basically Bruce. We kind of touched base with it in the First Blood issue, but it's basically Bruce, and he's in the, and they do touch base with some things in the past if you're not familiar with Batman, but I kind of like sped forward like a couple pages. But we do catch up with Bruce in the nightmare, and he like right off the bat he's like, bro, I know I'm in a nightmare. He was like, I've done this all before, and he was like, you can't mess with my fears and stuff like that. And Insomniac starts like, he keeps repeating this thing throughout the book. He was like, I'm not here for your fears. Nightmares are like a different kind of story. We do get some more like kind of entanglements and shots of Insomnia. Again, remember, he kind of changes, but his face stays the same, kind of thing. But eventually, like during this whole trek with Batman, he is taken back to like Crime Alley. He is taken back to the I think it's the Monarch Theater, where right before that occasion happens. Of course, Batman being able to like he's kind of been here before, kind of thing, dealt with his fears, dealt with his nightmares. But we quickly realize that that's not really what's going on. He's taken back to Wayne Manor. There's all these different graves of people he's lost. Some of them, more currently. Some of them not yet. But maybe in the future. Insomnia does this whole thing where he plays with his his outcomes and stuff like that, and he does explain some weird stuff, like he wants to be his sidekick. They go back to the Nightmare Stone, the point of the book, and we kind of get a clear picture of what the Nightmare Stone looks like. But he's like, hey, if you help me, I'll help you, kind of thing, and blah blah blah. There ends up being this Batman fight between Insomnia, but of course Bruce Wayne's still stuck in his kid mode or whatever. As this is going on, Insomnia starts changing to different personalities and bringing up some very close things that happened recently, like Catwoman and the wedding. But as it's going on, none of that stuff is really working. But eventually, Batman finds out something else, that's not none of this. It's just Insomnia messing with him. And eventually, Bruce gets to this point where he ends up throwing up this type of monster thing, and really what it is, let me see if I can read exactly what it is, but it's his nightmare that's become his own reality based off of his guilt. They do show you what it is, and they show you on the front cover too. It's like this bat looking thing that has a gun for a face, and as soon as he sees the face, it starts shooting at him and stuff, and it becomes this action scene. At the same time, the bat's killing off all those things that is in the background. But again, Batman is Batman. As this is going on, he just progresses. The way he appears in the dream, kind of thing, looks all nightmarish cool. And eventually he tries to start battling Insomnia. Eventually he is teleported, and this is kind of where his story leaves off, basically. But it's Bruce Wayne now as Joe Chill, about to kill his parents, and and that's where this one leaves off. There is this little side story that says it will be continued in Night Terrors issue number 3, so I'm kind of vaguely going to touch on it. But basically it's Damian Wayne being the badass that he is, and he's come to this place out in the desert or something like that. I'm not going to give it a name. But basically he's come here to learn how to not fall asleep because of this upcoming event that's been revealed to him. Some way, some kind, I don't know. But eventually we do see that moment where the whole world ends up falling asleep. He does kind of pan out for a second, but he comes back rejuvenated, and he basically says that what he was doing was a success. And it like I mentioned, it tells you that this is going to be finished in Night Terrors issue number 3, or continued in, But that is Night Terrors week 1. I'm about to get started on reading week 2. I have not yet, because I wanted to do this first. I had a lot of requests for these. I hope I did this in justice. I read these I want to say when they dropped maybe a week ago or something like that. So I'm trying to do the best job I can off of memory and going back and touching base with these. But hey, these are my reviews. These are my thoughts. So far, I'm loving it. I love all of it. I can say the Black Adam was kind of my least favorite, but it was still a good read. I would say the Batman and the Joker were definitely my favorite. The Joker, that very first page with Batman sliding off the rooftop, was great. Hey, but this is my thoughts. This is my reviews. Let me know down below if you've been reading Night Terrors. Let me know what you're thinking about it. But that's all I got for you guys. All right, bye.